as much of a stressor as it was a huge blessing, because I don't know that I would have ever gone out on my own, at least that quickly, had I not just been pushed. I overnight I was like, where do I go? And then I'm like, the hell with it. Like, I'm not gonna, I'm just gonna open my own. It was,
right.
So I just took the leap. Personal training will always be there, right? I think there's a big need for it. I think it's always going to be a great business. But really, if you want to touch a lot of lives and you want to really make an impact, and I think that the trend towards group fitness.
For me, it was right around 2012. I identified that there was something in the air. There was something happening where that one-on-one experience wasn't as easy.
And I'm a numbers guy.
Yep.
I've always had the kind of the Rain Man thing in my head. So we started doing that. I was like, oh man, like, this is where we can really make an impact. For anybody that doesn't know what SWEAT440 is, we've basically tried to solve the number one excuse people have for not working out, which is that they don't have time. And so we wanted to come up with something a little bit more flexible and friendly to people's schedules, and you just show up and jump into class whenever it suits you. People are always going to be the biggest problem and the biggest solution to anything. Your product can only be as good as the people executing it. The biggest thing is I've just made mistake after mistake after mistake. We've just failed our way to success. That means, no matter what city I go to, I'm going to be able to see something that I was a part of creating.
That's cool. Yeah.
And just knowing that feeling of like, wow, we have 20,000 members or 100,000 members, or maybe one day 1 million members. That's an impact. That's when you know that you really did something in the world that's like legacy worthy.
All right, Cody, we're here.
What's up, man?
Appreciate you doing this.
My pleasure.
I know you're crazy busy these days.
Yeah.
I'm about to read this, and even when I was reading this, I was like, oh my gosh, he's busy. So I didn't even know some of this. So raised on a cattle ranch in Wyoming. I did not know that. I don't know why I didn't know that. That's amazing. Graduated from college and went to work on a cruise ships as a way to see the world, which is really cool. Then you later founded Sunset Harbor Fitness in 2011. Home of the Warrior Shift, a luxury health and wellness personal training studio in Sunset Harbor that focus on healing and strengthening the whole person, providing personalized wellness guidance to help clients unlock their peak potential. Now, so that reminds me, didn't you have a place called Peak too? Or is that?
So one of my trainers, James, had so a lot of the trainers that worked out of that original studio kind of ran their own businesses within it.
Okay.
And one of them was Peak Endurance.
Okay, I knew the Peak.
That was James's personal brand.
Okay, all right, I remember that. Co-founder and CEO of SWEAT440 Gym, co-owned with Matthew Miller, Chief Brand Officer. SWEAT440 reimagines the traditional gym, offering 40-minute workouts that start every 10 minutes with locations across Florida, New York, New Jersey, North Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, and Alabama. That's when I read that, I was like, what has he done? Because
I think the same thing every day. Yeah.
Because coming from someone that has had a few in the outstate, I was like, oh my God, I read that. I was like, wow. The first location opened in 2018 on Miami Beach, and franchising began in 2022. There are now 20 franchise locations, 2 corporate studios with 17 to 18 in development and 15 additional units sold as of August. First of all, that's huge. So congratulations on that. I would definitely want to dive into the operations of that because it just sounds like a lot.
Yeah.
But it's tremendous. I know I've kind of watched your journey from afar, and it's just kind of cool to see where we all started and then kind of where we're all going, and it's fun to see everybody's success. So
yeah, no, sometimes I wake up and I'm like, man, how the hell did I get here? It's just it's been a fun ride. So
let's go back real fast. Growing up on a cattle ranch in Wyoming, like how did that shape you as a man, and what was that like? You know?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. When I was about 7 or 8 years old, we moved to the ranch and ended up growing up there in my formative years. And the great thing about that is I think it really makes you a really well-rounded person. You have to know how to be an electrician, how to be do construction, how to do just good old hard like manual labor. And the funny thing is, like, I was allergic to horses growing up, so I didn't get to do the fun cowboy stuff where I was out riding and moving cows and doing all that stuff. So I ended up doing all the hard work. So I was building fence, working in the fields, and so it kind of helped me form that hard work ethic that, I don't mind being behind the scenes, not doing the fun stuff, but just really grinding it out and doing the hard work. And at the end of the long day, looking back at the fence you built and that perfectly straight line, and just being able to take pride in the small things like that.
Yeah.
I think that I couldn't have imagined a better way to grow up. I think I would wish that for pretty much anyone to have that kind of an upbringing, because it's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, talk about instilling just a work ethic, like,
Yeah.
like no holds barred. Like, you get up, you grind all day,
Yeah.
sweat, blood, tears. Like, I'm sure it was all that. So.
Always. Yeah. And it's really funny now. It's, sometimes I wonder like how I ended up where I'm at. And it is interesting to look at all the different steps of my life that kind of led me here. Like you said, the cruise ships, college, I have technology background, all the different stuff that kind of led me to having the perfect combination of things to help, shape what SWEAT440 became. And the definite foundation of that was the work ethic I got on the ranch. There's no question.
So leaning into that, going from the ranch and having that work ethic, and then going into this cruise ships where you wanted to see the world. Yeah. What did you learn from that, and what kind of did you take away from that?
Yeah, so it was interesting. I went to college and got degrees in exercise physiology and biomechanics. I've always had a huge passion for health, wellness, fitness, and so I really got into the science of that. But then I realized coming out of college that I was probably going to go do like a heart research thing was my focus. And then I realized, well, I don't want to just jump into a lab and be doing all that kind of stuff. And so I really realized I'd grown up my whole life in Wyoming, but there's a huge world out there I need to experience. So I went out to work on the cruise lines. There's a company, it's now called One Spa World. It used to be called Steiner. So I went out as just a regular old fitness personal trainer, right? And
on cruise ships.
On cruise ships,
oh, that's
yeah.
Cool. Okay.
So I flew to London, went through their training program, ended up flying then to New Orleans and getting on the Carnival Conquest ship, and was doing really, really well for them there. So they moved me over to a ship with Princess Cruise Lines, and very quickly I rose to the top of the performance for all the trainers. There's about 300 ships at sea that they run. They run basically the whole ocean, so it's a big company. And so then I had the opportunity they promoted me to come to the head office here in Miami. That's why I ended up here, and so it was really kind of fun. I got to do kind of a hybrid role, where I was working with developing the point of sale systems and the technology that they use to sell products. They had like multilingual staff, a very crazy world, on the cruise ships.
Yeah.
So that's where I got a little bit of my technology, background. And then alongside that, I got to, work with the fitness program and help grow that, and got to truly work with, it's a $1 billion company. It's a big company. So I really got to learn, I got to cut my teeth in the business world and be a part of that. So that was a really interesting time in my life.
How old were you then?
20, what had I been, like 23?
So young. Like
yeah,
really young. Like fresh out of college.
Yep,
yeah.
Fresh out of college. So I think I went out on the ships when I was like 22. I moved to Miami when I was like 23. So
oh wow.
Yeah, it's been like 20 years ago. Yeah, right around that time. So yeah, that makes sense.
And were you, when you came to Miami, were you always in that Sunset Harbor area?
Yeah, so I've always been on Miami Beach. I started kind of down on like 10th and West, and then kind of ended up in Sunset Harbor about 11 years ago.
Okay.
It was still just emerging to be what it is now. It was, they were starting to do the construction. It used to be just the tow trucks and it wasn't really a very nice area. And coincidentally, my wife, she's lived there since even before that. She's been in that neighborhood for like 14 years.
Oh
wow. And so it's really funny. We talk about how that evolution of that whole neighborhood took shape. And it was really fortunate timing for me to be in on the ground floor, because I opened Shift in 2010. And then in 2011, I found a really nice building right there on 19th and Alton Road.
Yep.
So, and I knew that area was starting to evolve. So I'm like, I need to get in there soon. And it was a really fortunate move.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
So what sparked you to open up your own place?
So it's kind of a funny story. So literally, I wasn't far down the road here. I was working with a couple, and I was in a personal training studio there. So I was at Equinox for a long time, did really well. Built up a really big client base there. And then I went to work for this private personal training studio. And it was a couple that had this kind of interesting relationship. And at one point, they opened my emails that were on the desk. And I had been looking for real estate. and it was for a cycling concept that I discussed with them about doing in partnership with them.
Yeah.
But they saw that I was looking for real estate, and they got it in their mind that I was actually trying to open up my own gym and take their business away from them. So they called me. I remember it was a Sunday afternoon. They called me, and they're like, "Listen, we've decided to let you go. You're no longer welcome to train here." And I was like, it came out of the blue. I was like, you're kidding me, right? So,
Is this me?
Huh? It was Me Fitness. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So
everyone, and didn't they have a show?
And I was like, they were trying to do a show. We did a pilot for the show.
That's right.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And so it was
And
really
there's
funny.
some controversy too, right? Didn't like one of the owners sleep with another owner, and then
so they were both and married,
Yeah.
and they ended up getting together. And that's so, and I don't remember how the whole thing went exactly, but they were, basically with each other, and then they went off and opened up the gym after their divorces and stuff like that. And so
there's a lot of drama.
It was a lot of drama.
If you were a trainer in Miami, you knew about all that drama. Like everybody was talking about it in Miami.
Yeah. And listen, they were great people. I really enjoyed working with them and stuff like that. And it's all water under the bridge now. But it was funny. They literally called me on a Sunday, and on Monday I secured a loan. By Wednesday, I found a spot on south of 5th on 4th and Meridian there. And 9 days later, I opened what now is Shift, my first personal training studio, and I brought in 3 other trainers.
In 9 days.
9 days.
That's amazing.
Yep. I borrowed $30,000, and I had to hook up with Gym Source, and the guy got me just enough bare bones equipment. What was his name? It's Dan.
Okay.
Dan was his name.
Did you know Bob Lawrence from Gym Source?
He's
like one of the OGs.
I think I know.
Good guy. Yeah.
So and then kind of long story short, I had 20 clients that I was training at the time. 19 of them left and came with me. I think about 3 months later, me ended up shutting down, which wouldn't so kind of one of those interesting stories. Is as much of a stressor as it was a huge blessing, because I don't know that I would ever gone out on my own at least that quickly had I not just been pushed. Right.
Yeah.
So I really can't say anything bad about the experience. It was the push I needed to step out and do that. And I overnight I was like, do I go back to Equinox? Do I where do I go? And then I'm like, the hell with it. Like, I'm not gonna I'm just gonna open my own. It was
right.
And Donnie Raymond.
That name sounds familiar.
Yeah, so it's funny. He actually had a little training studio, and he and his wife were about ready to move to California. So that spot came available. The timing, it's like
And remind, it's the one. It was the one upstairs on. Is that one?
No, it wasn't that one. So this one was south of 5th. This one was on 4th and Meridian, and it was a little
I don't know if
office
I ever went
space.
to that one.
Yeah, you wouldn't have. I mean, literally is the size of this room. It was tiny. It was a little thing, and then in 2011, then I moved up into Sunset Harbor.
Okay.
Yeah, so. But it's funny. It just was one of those times in life where, you get faced with something and like, well, I've got to make a decision quickly. And so I just took the leap, really. Yeah. And
the name Shift, was that already kind of something you thought about?
So funny story. Not that I'm vindictive at all, but so I was left Me Fitness, and so I opened You Fit, where it's not about me, it's about you, right? So so I called it You Fit Health and Performance.
Did You Fit steal that from you?
So. Yeah. So this one was U-Fit instead of YOU.
Yeah.
There was a little bit of an intention behind that. I was like, well, it's not about me, it's about you. So I kind of did that one on purpose. And and then when we moved to Sunset Harbor, it was still YouFit Health and Performance for about another 2 years. And then when I moved from the 19th and Alton space into the upstairs space that you're talking about, I rebranded and called it Shift, which stands for Sunset Harbor Innovative Fitness Training.
I never knew it meant that.
Yeah.
Okay, because that's where I got confused.
Yeah.
So she sent me some information on you, and I'm like, he never owned a Sunset whatever. I was like, he owned Shift, and
Shift, Sunset Harbor Innovative Fitness. Yeah,
it's the acronym for that,
and it's kind of fun. So and now actually, I'm transitioning ownership of that over to one of my trainers, Elmer, is taking over that because of everything I've got going on at Sweat. I don't have the time to properly focus on that, and so. It's the right thing to do to keep our, all the trainers there are great. I wanted to make sure they have a home that's being well taken care of. And so I'm, gradually we're doing like a 3-year transition program for Elmer to take over. So he's been running it now for about the
It's in the same spot?
Same spot.
Okay.
It's right across from Dr. Ivan's office.
Yeah.
They're on all those bays right by Fresh Market.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love it. I mean, it's interesting to hear your story knowing I knew of you and them, but I didn't know the story.
Right.
So it's kind of cool to now to like
Yeah.
hear the story. So it's really cool.
It was really fun, you know, and it, like you said, like it's a small world, and we all know each other, and so it was really cool. Like back in the day, it was, you know, when I was at Equinox, you know, I had a really great opportunity to be around great people. As Mark Magna was there, you know, there was Mike Fitch, who went on to, you know, do the Animal Flow workout. Tony Thomas, like that was a group of guys that we were all training there, and so. It's really interesting to see how kind of all of us have grown out to do our own things with our own brands and build things. And, you know, it's just really good fortune to be around good people at the, you know, pivotal points of my life, and getting to, you know, have them there to like raise my game the whole way. And so it's just been good fortune the whole time.
Did you have the same feeling? So when I was like at, I would say my peak, no pun intended, with personal training, I want to say for me, it was right around 2012 that I started to see a little bit of a shift. No pun intended. I don't know where I'm coming up with this.
Yeah.
Shift in personal training, shifting towards group training. Like I identified that there was something in the air. There was something happening where that one-on-one experience wasn't as easy and obviously it was a combination of all this new stuff coming out, you know, berries and OTF and you know, I don't even know if F45 was around then, but like, you know, a CrossFit was coming on to the thing. So was that something that you recognized too? Like,
yeah, so I started noticing it. I think I was so deep into the personal training world, and I'd say I was deep into it well through like 2015, 2016.
Okay.
My business was going well personally as a trainer. I enjoyed it. I had great clientele, you know, that I was really close to. So I don't think I started to get the wandering eye for group fitness yet. I enjoyed it. I like to go take a class at these different places once in a while, but I think it wasn't, so, you know, when we started to sweat, it was really Matt that kind of approached me, because he had started to notice that, like, okay, this is really where the world's going. And it was right around that time that I was kind of getting that itch to like, okay, well, I can't be a personal trainer forever, right? You know, I can, but do I really want to? And like, what, you know, and also like, you can't ever take a break if you're a trainer, right?
Ever.
You can't go on a week-long vacation because
can't get sick, can't take vacations, nothing.
And I loved that commitment to my clients and stuff like that. But it, you know, it's also not you're not gonna get rich and retire doing that either. No matter how much you charge as a trainer and how good of a trainer you can drive, you know, be all the way at the top of your game, but it's still dependent on your time, right? So it's interesting, like, well, and the big thing for me is I've always had a passion for helping people. That's why I think I always loved being a trainer. But then I started to realize that, well, I'm only able to help one person at a time, one hour at a time, right? And so, you know, on a good day, 8, 9, 10 clients, like that's a good busy day, but I'm capped out at that, right?
Right.
And so I think when Matt approached me with what was the original idea for Sweat that we kind of worked on and evolved, and I can tell you more about that later, but like, you know, he really is the one that recognized the shift in the trend. Personal training will always be there, right? I think there's a big need for it. I think it's always going to be a great business, but really, if you want to touch a lot of lives and you want to really make an impact, and you know, I think that the trend towards group fitness, he had awakened me a little bit to it, and we started looking into it more from a business perspective.
Okay.
And I'm a numbers guy. I've always had the kind of the Rain Man thing in my head, so we started doing that. I was like, oh man, like this is where we can really make an impact. And so we started running those numbers in our heads and then putting them on paper, and then like, okay, yeah, we've got to figure out a way to make group fitness part of what we're doing. And, that's how Sweat started to.
And then so Sweat, the idea you said 2015-ish or something like that.
So we 2017 is when we got started on the whole project. So we started our LLC formation, started putting a pen to paper, getting our lease in place, and then we opened the first one in 2018.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, so I'd say about 2015 is when I started noticing it, attending. 2017 is when it started becoming like, okay, this is probably where we're going to be headed.
Yeah. And what was your process of that, like coming up with that concept?
Yeah, so so Matt was originally approached me. He was training something. So Matt had a mobile personal training business where he had a bunch of trainers that would go to the apartment buildings and train clients there. Meanwhile, I had more of the brick and mortar, where all my trainers worked out of the studio and train their clients in that studio. Matt had a couple of his trainers, and he himself were using Shift to train some of their clients. So Matt tells a story. He's like, I hosted a big meeting for all the trainers once, and I was giving everyone the rah, and like whatever for, the talk I was giving. And it kind of rung a bell, like, man, Cody's the kind of guy I might want to partner up with for this idea that I have. So he approaches me with, it was originally gonna be like an assembly line style workout where it's like you go and then the next person goes. And the idea being is that you could just show up and jump into a workout whenever you wanted. We ended up tweaking it quite a bit to be what it is now, because we realized that there needed to be a little bit more of a group type of setting. And if it's just you go and then I go, then there's really no partnership or camaraderie. But so we ended up, setting up where we have the two people all in the same station rotating. And so he approached me with that, and we ended up realizing also, like, how do you run a program like this without having to have 4, 5, 6 coaches on the floor running the whole thing? So that's where my technology background came in a little bit. So he approached me with the idea, and then we started working through it, and literally putting tape on floors and measuring like how many people can fit, and like doing the whole thing. And then it was like 5 or 6 weeks before we actually opened that we actually started on the technology piece, which was very last minute. And hilarious story, we ended up getting like a guy that did menus for like like those digital menus instead of restaurants. And he built us this really janky thing where the videos could play on 3 different screens, because we needed 3 different exercise videos playing with, and then a timer on the 4th. And so we figured out this really, really bad software. And then about 5 days before we opened, I hired an old friend of mine from the cruise ship days that actually designed the point of sale systems on the cruise ships. Hired him, and he came in and built what was the foundation of what we now use for our technology system in Sweat.
Okay.
So and then we kicked it off 2018. We opened in Sunset Harbor, right below my personal training studio, right below Shift, and we just really used a lot of the social capital that Matt and I had. Invited all of our friends, all of our clients, all of their friends. Like, guys, we got this crazy idea. We opened on a Tuesday because we weren't very smart, and we thought, like, just open any day of the week. We didn't do like a grand opening party on a Saturday like smart people would. We and we had like 50, 60 people show up for it on a Tuesday. Amazing. It was great day. Wednesday rolls around, like 9 people came and take class. I'm like, oh man, what have we done? Like, we have, I just blew, a couple $100,000, and this is a bad idea. But then people started kind of getting the idea. So, for anybody that doesn't know what SWEAT440 is, we've basically tried to solve the number one excuse people have for not working out, which is that they don't have time. Right. And this well, like, for some people it's an excuse. For a lot of people it's a very valid reason. They've got work, they got kids, they get caught in traffic, they can't find parking, whatever the reason is. If you go to your traditional like OTFs or berries and stuff like that, they start classes at 7 a.m. and then another one at 8:30 a.m. and stuff like that. So if you miss that class, you're probably going to get hit with a no-show fee, lose your spot in class, and then miss your workout. So it's the trifecta of bad luck. And so we wanted to come up with something a little bit more flexible and friendly to people's schedules, so that we have a rotating system where the classes start every 10 minutes, and it's only 40 minutes long, so you can fit it into the busiest lifestyle, and you just show up and jump into class whenever it suits you. And so going back to that grand opening story, or lack of a grand opening story, I guess. We opened, and then people really started to appreciate the flexibility that was providing their lives. And so within about 3 weeks, we started to notice, like, you couldn't even get into class on like a Saturday morning. So we actually were worried that we had overshot our landing and the convenience wasn't there because you couldn't get into class. But good problem to have. It's like exactly. It's like a busy restaurant. People still wanted to come. And
how many people can fit within the 10 minutes?
So we have 2 different formats. We have small studios do 6 people per 10 minutes.
Okay.
And our larger studios like Brickell and stuff like that, they do groups of 9 every 10 minutes.
Okay.
So that's that's either 36 people an hour or 54 people in an hour. So we have a pretty tremendous throughput capacity. Whereas if you take like a normal like Orange Theory, for example, they'll have at best capacity for maybe like 30 people. Some of their really big ones, maybe in New York, might have bigger, more capacity. But so because of the rotating system, we have a lot of throughput capacity for people as well. So we don't ever run into inventory problems too often. Saturday morning, Sunday morning, sometimes you'll hit some peak hours where people will have to wait 10 minutes to get into class, maybe 20. But not the end of the world.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. That's still not that big of a weight.
Yeah. So it really took off, and we're actually opening number 23 tomorrow in Fort Lauderdale.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, so that'll be a lot of fun. It's in Los Olas,
Okay.
right up there by next to the.
Yeah, we just expanded our Fort Lauderdale location because it's such an amazing area.
Yeah. Where are you at in Fort Lauderdale?
So we are in 500 South Andrews Avenue. So right
Yeah.
when you come over that bridge,
Yeah.
we're right on the corner.
That's cool.
And we started in July 2020. We opened July 2020. Actually opened 2 studios.
Yeah, I
July
remember.
2020.
I remember you powering through. I was impressed.
It was
by that.
interesting.
Yeah.
And it was brutal in the beginning. Like, both Pembroke Pines and Fort Lauderdale were, because it was 2020,
Right.
was really hard to get it going. But then like the second year, it just, bam, like, 2022, it just blew up.
Yeah.
And then it got to the point where it was like we need to either expand or we're going to have to think about opening a second location. Like, it was that kind of like that many people showing up. So
Did you move spaces or just expanded the current space?
So what was really cool is that, so you just were in Wynwood.
Yeah.
So basically, like what I did, and I think you heard me say this when we were talking to Mariana Tech, is that originally I was going your route. Like originally, my whole concept was pit, partner interval training, 20 stations, 2 people at each station, 3,600 to 4,500 square foot facilities, and you do classes all day long, and that's the model, and you do 1,000 locations. That was kind of like where my head was at before the pandemic.
Right.
Then the pandemic hit, and I was like, all right, I got to shift. I don't like this anymore. I don't want to do it. And then there was a lot of reasons behind it. So then I immediately pivoted to full-scale gyms, like I did in Wynwood, and it was really because of the reaction that we got from Wynwood, from investors, from clients, like going from a no AC warehouse to what you just saw.
I remember that one. Yeah.
Like it's a massively different situation. So people started to, even though I would say the warehouse was infamous and like kind of nostalgic, and like, I mean, the amount of like professional athletes that were going in and out of there, it was definitely cool, and it was a great 13-year run.
It was raw. It was great.
Yeah, it was awesome, and we loved it. But I think that in order to get the attention of like true real money investors and kind of like being able to scale it, you had to think beyond that. So that's where like the physical therapy, the cold plunging, the sauna, the smoothie bar, all that kind of came in, the open gym, and that kind of came into play. So when I opened Wynwood, I was like, okay. And it also, like, you want to do something that you want to do. Like, you want to do something that you enjoy. Right. So walking into that place, I mean, you just like, it just feels good, So instead of walking into 120 degree, no AC, for doing that for 13 years. But you got to start somewhere. So
when did you start the first one?
November 2008.
2008
was the first time I opened. The way I keep pointing because it's literally right there.
Because I remember when I was at me, it was like literally like 6 blocks down the road from
exactly.
Yeah, I remember that.
So I opened that up, and I was basically, so I knew all about me, and I was basically trying to do what me was doing. Like it was supposed to be a personal training gym with me, 4 other trainers training clients. Right. That's what it was supposed to be.
Right.
And after a year and a half of going through 19 trainers, like literally 19 trainers, I kid you not, I was like, this isn't working. I was like, I could not find another trainer. I just could not find another. That like I was working from 5 a.m. until 10 at night. Like that 16 clients, bam, bam, bam. Like that was just what I did.
Yeah.
So I was like, where's another, and then the problem too is I kept trying to find Manning, like the Manning, and you can't. And so I was getting and also I was not exactly the easiest to work with, like from a standpoint of, I had a very, very high standard of like this is what's expected,
Right.
like you should have clients at 5 a.m. and you should be training till it was just what I knew. I didn't know anything else. So
we always try to replicate ourselves because that's the lens that we look through. So,
Exactly. So I learned a lot. I definitely learned a lot. And then that's when I pivoted. So then that's when I started paying attention to Orange Theory and berries and CrossFit. And I was like, there's something there. Yeah. So in 2000, I want to say it was 2011, or it might have been 2010, but it was right. It was only a couple of years after we opened. I started what we called back then boot camp.
Right.
And so instead of charging $200 an hour, you know, we're charging $25 a head. Yeah. And we're doing it on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 5:30 p.m. And I kid you not, within like 2 months, we had like 100 people showing.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, you know, like the light bulb goes off and you're like, oh, wait a minute, there's something to this. But then you get that feeling of like, okay, this is not responsible. You know, it just looked like chaos. And so that's when I started pairing people up.
Right.
And so you turn 100 people into 50 people.
Yeah.
And then it was really cool because one day you're just sitting back and you're just you're the only coach and you're watching, and then you're watching people coach each other, you know, and encouraging each other. And then you're like, and then you're literally not doing anything. You're just kind of playing DJ and watching. You're like, wait a minute, there's something to this, you know? And then, and again, my story's really long, but you know, and then you start to, like you probably did too, is that you put pen to paper. You start saying, okay, let's remove this. Let's take this out. Okay, 1 minute stations didn't work. Let's try 2 minute stations. Okay, 15-second breaks wasn't long enough. So let's try 30 seconds, you know, and you just start to like play this game with it and start to perfect it. And it took 6 years to figure it out, like to really have a system like SWEAT440, like Orange Theory, you know, these systems. And then I told my idea I'll never forget, to a guy that owned 33 Planet Fitnesses. Wow. And he was a hedge fund guy and he was loaded, you know, just, you know, driving, you know, just loaded, you know. And I told him my idea and he's like, nope, it's not gonna work. And I was like, why? He's like, you care too much. He's like, you're actually trying to help people. It's only about numbers. It's only about numbers. You have to do it. You know. And I was like, all right. And so I hung up the phone. He kind of like depressed me for about 30 seconds. And then I literally was like, oh, hell no. I was like, I'm doing this.
Don't listen to that guy. Yeah.
So then it like made me even more motivated to do it. So I stopped coaching and started pouring into the other people, the trainers, and teaching them the systems and stuff. Right. And then, you know, and the rest is history. So
that's awesome.
You know, but it's really cool.
And then, so how many classes a day are you guys doing here now?
So we typically do anywhere from 9 to 10 a day. Okay. So 4 to 5 in the morning, 4 to 5 at night.
Okay.
And then like, you know, each location you start to feel out like, you know, sometimes like an 8:30 a.m. is a hit. And then sometimes it's like you know, so and then what's interesting, and I know you probably deal with this, different areas have you fill out their different demands. Yeah. You know, so for example, like we have a 5 a.m. class at Pembroke Pines, Kendall, and Fort Lauderdale, but 5 a.m. doesn't work in Coral Gables. Right. You know, so our first class in Coral Gables is 6 a.m. 5 a.m. doesn't work in Wynwood. You know, so our first class in Wynwood is at 5:45. So you just kind of make those small adjustments. But I'll say, and actually I wanted to ask you this. So one of our biggest thing is like community, right? You know, and I feel like that's such a strong thing. How do you handle community? Because you have such a like system that people are coming in and out. Do you find that aspect is missing, or do you find it still is prevalent?
Both. So I find it to be missing and also very present at the same time, which probably doesn't make any sense. But
it kind of does though, because I can see how it still does. I just wanted to hear it from you. So
so our model by its very nature does not lend itself to natural community, because we're not starting 20 or 30 people at the same time, ending at the same time, bring them all in for a huddle and give them the rah rah rah. It's very much like, all right, you 6 go. All right, these guys are done. You 6 go, and it's very automated, the screens, but. So there's kind of two components to it, right? So you just made me smile a second ago when you said you watched some of your customers become coaches, right? And start working with, and we very much lean on that as well. So if you were to come in tomorrow to SWEAT440 and it was your first class, I would be like, hey Manning, welcome. You know, this is Joe. He's a regular. Joe, this is Manning. It's his first class. You know, stick with him, right? Because it's naturally there's 2 people on each exercise no matter what. So anytime a first timer comes in, we try to partner up with one of our OGs. That's always
we do
there.
that too. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of
sometimes
natural.
They hate us for it. Sometimes
you got to read the room too. You got to know who's who. And some people like to be left alone, and they'll give you the no, don't bother me look. And then there's the other people that it empowers them, right? Yeah. And a funny story, I remember this girl, Teresa, she's kind of this older, she was a little bit of a heavy set lady that started with us in the very first location at Sweat. She had a bad knee. That she was kind of rehabbing and stuff like that. And over the years, we watched her just drop weight, getting strong. But at this point, she had probably come for about 3 or 4 months. She'd probably done 30, 40 classes. was just really starting to get in shape. And there's this young, cocky, really in shape kid comes in. I think his name was Kyle. I'll never forget this. And you could just tell he was he was just a cocky young kid.
Yeah.
But it was his first class. So he didn't know how the whole system worked. So I was, hey, T, this is Kyle. It's his first class, I need you to look after him for me, right? And I was working the gym by myself that morning. Didn't have another coach on staff. So I was really, my attention needed to be kind of everywhere. And she got like 2 inches taller. And I watched that whole class, and she was pointing to him and helping him and correcting him. And at the end, they high-fived. And I just remember that was one of the most rewarding moments for me in that. So going back to your original question, so community can come a little bit through that. It's also very heavily dependent, and it does vary studio to studio, but our coaches and our managers and stuff like that really have to do a good job of creating that community, getting to know people. So because of the flexibility of our model, I also leverage the technology. Everyone's names show up on the screens so that we can use your name regularly and really make you feel, it's like the Cheers effect, right? Where everyone knows your name. And so hopefully you get a better feeling of community from our team, which is not necessarily the same as having community with all the other people you're taking class with. And then we try to do some events and stuff like that. So I also feel like we have a lot of opportunity in that area. And it's something that, now that we're getting to scale, I'm starting to hire a bigger team at corporate. And I think we're trying to leverage some of those people now to focus solely on community. We've been looking at ways to do there's charity and there's prosperity, right? So we've been recommending don't do charity where you just give money away, but rather do prosperity type events where you allow people to come in, use your space to push their own charity things that they're doing and things like that. So we've got a big initiative that we're working through like that, and we're getting big enough now. We're at 23 studios now. We should be opening about 19 to 20 new studios next year alone. So, theoretically by the end of next year, we'll be close to 50 studios. We've got like 11,000 members or however many we've got now. So let's say we're at 20,000 members by the end of next year, whatever that looks like. We can really start to make an impact.
I was about to say that's a community in itself.
That's right. Yeah. And then we've talked about doing fun stuff about like CrossFit has the CrossFit Games. We could have like the SWEAT440 Games or maybe something better named than that, but something really cool.
We just started the Legacy Games just for that exact same reason.
There you go.
It's like, you people want to see the fruits of their labor. Like they want to, and then people love competition, right? They love it. So giving them something like that is definitely a smart move.
Yeah, it's huge. Yeah. And so, but it's big because we do lack the natural community flow just based on our model. It's not set up for that. And so we're trying to get creative around better ways to do that because, it's better for the members, right? They get more out of it. They get more motivated. They come more regularly. They get better results, which naturally is better for business, right? Because then they stick with you longer and they bring more friends. And so it's that, that constant feeding of the flywheel. And so community is big.
I feel like it's our number one thing. I really do. Like it's just,
well, I remember that. So, I only took a couple classes at the original, and I remember showing up that first day, and I think it was a Saturday morning or something like that, and I had the day off, and because my trouble was I was always training, so I didn't have time to go take classes and enjoy it. But I remember the one day I went, and it was hot. But I remember that class, and I remember showing up. But the really fun thing that really seared in my memory was that I went because I was invited by other people that were going to class on a regular basis. And I just remembered like very, very clearly that day. And it was a hell of a workout. It really kicked my ass that day. But then at the end of it, I felt that community vibe and that was huge.
And it's really cool to see it and this is what I think you'll be able to lean into. What I think is really cool is I've seen it go from one location to now 7 locations of the greater community kind of like supporting each other, even if it's just social, and so I think you can really lean into that of like creating maybe something like where people are supporting each other, even when they're not like necessarily next to each other. So I think we've done a good job of that, of just celebrating our members and like people with we have like the classes, like we give them like the championship belt, when they've hit their like 100th class or 200, people love that stuff, or if somebody like, cause we have the rowers, the skier, things that have like, tangible like things that you can what am I trying to say,
like measurable
things. And so like when someone gets a record on the 500 meter row, just shouting them out, stuff like that. I think is cool.
Right. I actually had a fun day. So I have a really good garage gym set up at my house in North Carolina, and so because we're up there when we're
what part of North Carolina?
So we have a place in Asheville. So so we're between Asheville and Miami Beach. We're going to be more in Miami Beach now, but up there we're out in the country a little bit, so we don't have access to group fitness classes really, and or even gyms. So so I had this day where I'm like, okay, I'm going to try and like set personal records on like the ski erg and the rower and do all this stuff, and then I'm going to try and feed it now out to all the studios of like, beat the coach or
benchmark,
or beat Cody, the CEO or whatever, and put it out there. And I remember hopping on that ski erg and I gave it everything I had, and I looked at my number. I was like, no, I gotta get in better shape before I put that out in public. So yeah. I thought,
have you ever had one of your younger trainers? So I now it's like crazy to me. I'm 47 now, and I have coaches that are like 22.
I know, half our age.
Yeah. But yet they still treat us like we're them.
Yeah.
Because we're in good shape and we're still look good.
I feel like I'm that young sometimes, but then I realize we're not. Yeah.
But what I've noticed is I'll catch myself like watching them say do 30-second ski erg, and then I'm like, all right, let me try this, and then you're like, oh, you like don't even want to tell anybody how bad you did.
I might have lost a step somewhere in there. I didn't even realize it. Yeah. No, but it's really fun, and it's awesome for me to even go and be a part of the product myself, right, as a customer, and really go in and watching. I'm a big fan of the technology side of things because we can leverage that to again to measure, and like the 100 classes we have, it shows up on the screen when it's their 100th class, and then they earn a badge that then is forever attached to their name. So then their name turns a different color, has a badge next to it. So we've done all that really cool stuff, but it's so fun to be a part of the product and watch how it's evolved over the last 6 years and how we've gotten here. But it's really interesting. Like I took a class, and I was in Charlotte last week, meeting with some people, and I took the class, and like 2 days later, it's like I couldn't even move my triceps. I was like, we didn't even do triceps. Like I was like, it was like push-ups and just some other like random exercises. But it was really fun. It was really because I get very stuck in my own just lifting heavy, and I love running and doing stuff like that. So I kind of get stuck in my own habits, and so going and having basically someone else train me, which is just our system that's doing it. It's really good, but it's humbling. It is fun, man. Yeah.
I can barely even do pit classes anymore. It's like keep that for the young crowd.
I'm gonna have to come over and do one soon.
It's awesome. Yeah. We did a team workout the other day. Yeah. And so his legend hit me up. He's like, hey, you want to lead the team workout? And I was like, man, we haven't done that in years.
Yeah.
And I did. I was sore as all get out the next day. I was wow. But they were dying, so it worked. But.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So talk a little bit about, you already talked a little bit about like Matthew coming to you, but how has it been, like running a business with someone else and like, that process? Like what has that been like for you?
Yeah. So, it's really interesting. Anytime you get into business and you have business partners, there's always a risk that that's not going to go well. But I have to say, Matt and I's relationship has just been so ideal. We kind of naturally found our own roles. So the way we kind of define it is he's kind of the creative and I'm kind of the business minded people, right? So he's the one that obviously had the original idea that we evolved into what it became. So he's our chief brand officer. So he focuses on the branding. So he keeps an idea, close eye on like what's out there in the industry and making sure we're relevant. He works hand in hand. We actually bought a marketing company last year and brought it in-house. So somehow I am CEO also of a marketing company, which I've obviously no business doing, but Matt really keeps a close eye on that. And so he's got that really good creative eye on things. And then I am basically technology and then business. So I do a lot of the accounting and the legal and the getting to rub PE conversations, all the different stuff that's out there. Keeping those people warm so that when the right time comes for us to do something with that, it's there. So we really just kind of found our own avenues, and we kind of stay in our own lanes. But when it does come time for us to have conversations, it's always been really productive. And it's neither one of us is like so headstrong that we won't listen to the other's opinion. And then very early on, we got some other people involved and they're on the board. And it's been, there's been a couple times where we haven't all agreed, but it's never been confrontational, which is very productive, right? Because at the end of the day, we all want what's best for the business. And, so I was very nervous going into it because I was very much a one-man show with the personal training studio, and just, I owned it, and I could set the rules, and I could just, if I didn't, but like you, I was probably a little bit too headstrong early on. I thought everything needed to be my way.
Right.
Same thing. Like, if you're not in the gym at 4:30 or 5 in the morning, then you probably just don't care enough about what you're doing. Like the same mentality, right? Because, so then when I got into, a different business and actually was going to have business partners, everyone's like, hey, be careful. It's not the same. And of course I ignored them because it's what we do, but they were right, and it can go horribly wrong, but I've been very, very fortunate to have such an awesome business partner in Matt. And then the people we've surrounded ourselves with to help support, and our advisors and stuff like that have been just positive. So very good fortune, because it can easily go the other way, right?
Definitely.
So no, it's been good.
Take me back to where'd y'all come up with SWEAT440, the actual name?
The actual name, yeah. So the naming was kind of fun. So when we were originally kind of thinking, we had the assembly line thing, and then we realized, okay, we were doing the same thing, coming up with different timing formats, and we did a lot of research, realizing that hour-long classes were starting to become less popular, and 45 minutes was kind of the new sweet spot. That's where, like, back in the day, remember Flywheel was big. It was a 45-minute class, and so we knew we wanted to be convenient and everything like that. So we were okay with shortening it even a little bit more, and we ended up coming with the 4-station 40-minute class, right? So that's where the 440 came from.
That makes sense.
But originally, we had this really cool idea where we were going to call it Brick House Athletics, and we were going to do it with the walls all in brick, because our first location had like a cinder block wall anyway. And then we did the entire turf in green. So it was going to be like you're actually outside, and we were going to make it kind of bright, making it feel like you're outside of a brick house, like in the yard, working out, was kind of the vibe we were going to try and go for. And during that evolution, we ended up with just a gray wall, and then we found black turf, which we thought was going to be cooler. So we ended up with a green and black turf mix. And then we started looking at, like, well, if this goes well, brick house is a very hard name to trademark and to do anything with, because it's there's actually another brick house concept in Minnesota or something like that. So then we went back to the drawing board and started writing out names. And so we're like, well, sweat. I mean, this is what we're going to do. And everyone's like, well, no, nobody likes sweat. That's gross. And I'm like, I don't think so. I think that even your female clients and stuff like that, they embrace it. They like to go out and they like to sweat. That's the goal of the workout, right? And people that are really into fitness don't look at sweat as a dirty word.
That has never crossed my mind.
Yeah,
ever.
Because you're in the issue. Like, we like sweat.
Actually, hearing you say it is weird. Like,
but for some people, like, they were worried. Like, no, that's people are gonna think that's gross. Yeah. And like, we disagree. We're like, listen, we're gonna take the risk. And so we end up with sweat, and then we realized, like, F45, right? Put the number, and so we're like, well, we kind of liked that, so we took sweat 440, and you're gonna sweat for 40 minutes. Sweat 4 stations, 40 minutes, like however you want to play it. It's a nice play on words. So, all right, sweat 440. And then we rolled with it.
Yeah. It turned out to be a good name too. So
yeah, it's funny. Well, it's nice because everyone just says, I'm going to go to sweat. I want to sweat. It just, not everyone actually says 440. Right. It's usually they just abbreviate it down to sweat. But it just it naturally just works. So like now, and like you said, if we grow and get 100 or 1,000 locations, the word sweat will be synonymous with our brand. Right. And I just think that that was kind of the vision that we had, if we're going to hit that kind of scale, to where we can take what is a very common word, but then having it be, aligned with your brand. Exactly. That could be a huge.
That's huge. Yeah. So what's, so now that you just kind of like led into that, like, what is next? Like, what is the goal for you?
Yeah. So, we're in a franchise model of growth. Yeah. So for me, the franchise world's been very interesting. I'm sure you have your ear to the ground. That there's been some really big missteps by some of the big players in the game, unfortunately. And I think everyone sets out meaning really well, and I think that things evolve to where bad things happen sometimes. But so the big thing for us is we want to grow. We want to double in size, triple in size, get the same thing. So next year we should hopefully hit that 50 studio mark. The year after that we're hoping to hit 100. And then like the year after that, like 250. So like, 50, then 100, then, just growing sustainably. But to do that, we want to do it very ethically and very sustainably. So we actually stopped selling franchises coming out of the pandemic. We had sold a bunch going right into 2020.
Yeah.
Fortunately, none of them had opened yet. We sold a couple more in like 21, but then we're like, okay, let's pause. Let's get these guys open. Let's make sure they're successful, supported, and that we have a team and a system that's replicable, and we can actually go forth and not put people at risk. Last thing I want to do is have somebody come and bet their child's college fund on a business idea and then it not work out right.
Did you read that exponential article?
Yeah,
it's brutal.
It's really brutal, and it's unfortunately it's ruined a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
And some of it's timing, some of it's bad luck, some of it's poor franchisee selection as well.
Yep.
So we really took a big step back, stopped selling franchises, and now we're ready to put our foot on the gas. So we want this good, transparent, ethical version of franchising where our franchisees are really our partners and we're really looking after them. We want to profit out of royalty and not out of selling franchises. So
which is a different approach.
It is, yeah, because a lot of them, they want to sell as many units.
I mean,
as they can.
F45 is sell.
Yeah. So they sold like 600-700 units, and they collect a ton of upfront franchise fees, and then they mark up their equipment package.
They force you to buy their equipment,
Yeah.
and they upcharge you by like 4 times the amount it should be.
Unbelievable, yeah. So we have a couple fees. So we make maybe a 10%, but we basically negotiate discounts off what you would buy the equipment for. So if a piece of equipment would cost you $1,000, we can get it for $800. But you can get it for $900. We just split the savings, basically is what we've done. Yeah. So, and so that's ethical. We make a little bit of money there, but it also allows the franchisee to get something that's cheaper than they could go out into the market and get it themselves. So, and if we can't negotiate a cheaper rate on something, we don't take anything. So like Concept 2 rowers, we can't get a discount on those, so we don't take any markup.
Unfortunately, nobody can.
Yeah, nobody can. Yeah, great business model there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
But so the goal is to grow, and it's to set up as many entrepreneurs with the ability to be successful and create legacy for them and their families. And we're really only looking to do multi-unit franchisees. We're not looking to have you buy one, you buy one, you buy one. Like, no, I want you to buy 3 to 5. And make it it's your life, it's your focus. It's not something you buy your kids as a hobby. It's not something you do on the side. This is something that we want you to commit to. And I think that's better for the brand. I think it's better for the other franchisees to know that all the franchisees are committed to the brand. They're not it's not a gig or a side hobby for them.
Right.
And so with that structure in mind, we're looking to put our foot on the gas and really start selling franchises. So we just started selling franchises back again in July, and we've sold 15 since July. So in the last 2 months, we've sold another 15 units. There's a line of people kind of wanting to get in there, and we're trying to be selective of that. So
is there a demographic restriction? Or are you open to anywhere?
Yeah, so not necessarily restrictions. So we're open to anywhere that makes sense. So, we've got all the demographic research and stuff like that, but our model really is flexible to incorporate people as young as 15 is our bottom cutoff, but really we pride ourselves anywhere from 22 to like 48 is kind of the big range where the majority of everyone fits in, which is great because that will allow you to go to like your Coral Gables might have an older demographic, whereas your Brickell will have a much younger demographic, right? And both of them are successful. So we do have that flexibility. And so then it's really about every city we go to, we run the numbers, and we have a really good site selection company that we work with that does all the software and the mapping and all the different things. So we do that before we even sell. So if you wanted to open a franchise in, say, Atlanta, pick a city, whatever, I'll be like, okay, cool. We know Atlanta can sustain the brand, but where in Atlanta? So then we say, we go to this company and they run the demographic research and they say, okay, these are your 5 top trade areas that you're going to go into. And so we try to really use science and data and technology as much as we can to make as informed of a decision as possible.
Right.
But then at the end of the day, it comes down to having a little bit of local knowledge, right? Some people know that, people like, how far do you spread them out? They're like, well, is it 5 miles? Is it a 15-minute drive? But we all know that if you're in Miami Beach or in Midtown, nobody crosses the bridge.
Yeah,
it's like there's an ogre under the bridge and nobody wants to cross it, right?
Yeah.
So everyone that lives there, and those are 10 minutes apart.
Yeah.
But they're very different markets and stuff like that too. So that does require some local intelligence and local knowledge as well. So we lean on the franchise partner to have a voice in that as well.
And what's been your biggest pain point of just this whole thing? Or many, I'm sure there's many, but because I think that what I've found is people look at where we are today
Yeah.
And like, oh, they just,
magically appear. Yeah.
Or we just like never stopped working or, just whatever, but they don't really see the true obstacles, the true challenges, the true setbacks, the true difficulty in running a massive business. Because like I said, let's just go back here for a second. Like Florida, New York, New Jersey, North Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, and Alabama, it's kind of spread out. And then obviously Miami. So, you can't be in everywhere. 20 different places at one time. So just talk a little bit about like some of the pain points you've had and how you've overcome them.
Right. So there's a lot of pain points. We could talk all day about that, but I think there's two really big ones, right? The number one, and I'm sure you know this as well as I do, that people are always going to be the biggest problem and the biggest solution to anything, right? Yeah. So, your product can only be as good as the people executing it. So it's really, finding good people, good managers in the different studios to really represent the brand and be passionate about it. When we have a great manager that embraces what we do and they're they live it and they breathe it, those studios do well, right? The product itself works. Right. The customers, we very seldom ever hear a bad thing about the product itself, right? It's usually a people thing or it could be a location thing and stuff like that. So people are always going to be a challenge. And today's workforce is interesting because people don't like have the work ethic that we grew up with, right? Which I'm not even thinking that people should. It's a little bit sadistic probably to work as hard as we do, but I love it. And I know that you do too. And I know that we're the early morning people that, and work into the night and stuff. And that's all well and good. So finding people that can embrace what we do and then want to have the work ethic to execute it is one side. But then at the brand level, I think anytime you try to replicate and you try to go to other places, it's all about having a replicable process where, no matter which studio you go into, it's a SWEAT440 because it looks, feels, sounds the same. Right. And that consistency is really tough. So we spend a lot of time, we have manuals and documents and stuff like that are, everywhere. We have a Google Drive that's full of stuff. And then in communication of those and getting them out there and being able to say, okay, tell an architect and a contractor in New York to build a studio to this look and feel, right? And then to train the employees to execute the training for their coaches and stuff like that to be the same so that when you go take a class, the coaching feels the same as it would in South Beach.
Right.
So that's just a lot of work. I wouldn't say it's even painful. That was just a lot of work. And the biggest thing is I've just made mistake after mistake after mistake, but we learn from them and we correct them really quickly. And so, I'd say, we've just failed our way to success, is the best way, I guess, to define that, because, we've had some really cool harebrained ideas that have been ridiculous and they've failed miserably. And then we've had some really kind of like off the cuff, like, whatever that have been home runs. And, so it's about constantly tweaking and just evolving the program and then the replication of that. So we've got softwares that we use for training people, right? So that I know that no matter where you are, you go through this training, you can do it in your phone. It's a little app, right. Again, I say a lot, but I leverage the hell out of technology because I think that there's it's easier to control an app, and I can update like my training program and make sure that every coach in the brand has to take that course.
Is everybody running the same workout at every studio?
Always, yeah. So Matt does all the programming stuff for us. That's a big part of his role. And it's really cool. Like even he's evolved a lot in the way he programs. And we talked about this literally just the other day, and we're constantly looking at how can we make the programming relevant to what people want today. Strength has become a much bigger focus than, so HIIT training was a big thing. It was a really big mix of cardio and weights.
Right.
People are wanting a little bit more strength focus now. So we're edging our way towards making sure that we have more of that component in there.
It's really cool too, that you're able to because I feel like we can do the same thing, is we can shift when we need to. Yep. Like we're not stuck. So for example, like berries, they can never change. Yeah. Like berries is berries, and nothing wrong with berries, but
it's fantastic.
Berries is amazing. I think we're all like trying to be berries.
Yeah.
So, but it is shout out to Derek.
Yeah. But they really designed a program that's treadmill focused.
Right. And that's what I mean. Like, but they can't change it. Is what I'm trying to say. Whereas we can actually change the systems and the workout to fit how things are trending. So
big.
and that's why I think, and I love that you've caught on to that, because I actually had a conversation with my brother about this, is that even like all these podcasts, you know, with all these women are now, you know, coming out and saying that women need to strength train more. And it's great, because we've been saying that
forever.
Since 2000, you know, but nobody believed us.
Yeah.
And then finally 20 something years later, people are catching on. So
Between strength training and Pilates is the other big one that's out there now.
Yeah.
Have you done a good old fashioned reformers Pilates class?
Yeah, you can't walk for like 2 weeks afterwards.
Yeah, my wife
those muscles were not meant to go there.
So. My wife's been dragging me to do more and more of it, and
my wife loves it too.
It's so good though. I mean,
and
it's humbling.
One of them, just solid core, just sold.
Yeah,
like
huge. $600 million valuation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, which is great for us.
Yeah.
Like, it's great to see.
For the industry.
I love seeing the industry getting back to those high evaluations and those kind of movements.
Well, especially after, like we said, some of the bigger missteps that have happened in the last couple of years, it's good to see, you know, that recovery and stuff like that, because at the end of the day, like I support all the fitness brands that are out there, and I hope that they all do well, because we're all in it together, right? You know, we may not always have the same modality or the same mentality about the way we do things, but at the end of the day, we're all trying to like move the industry forward. And you know, there's a business side to it, which we all want to, you know, make the money and do well and have all that, but we want to help people along the way. So it's, you know, it doesn't do anyone any good when one's failing. So it's really great to see what Solid Core did.
Yeah, for sure. I just read that. I think it was like 2 days ago.
That's 2 days ago.
Yeah.
What's your next location? Now, you got Nashville, right? And then anything else on that?
So we're actually opening up Little River,
right?
Which will be our new No Days Off headquarters and a legacy gym.
Okay.
So it's 16,087 square feet. Like the last time I took my brother there, he walked in, he's like, it looks like Super Target. Like
that's amazing.
It's pretty massive. It still is. I'm trying to get the thing open in 40 days.
Okay.
But it's going to be...
Let me know when you do your opening, man. I want to come.
It's going to be a spectacular facility. Like it's something that... So basically, when I decided to move the warehouse to here, you know, you do what you can, right? Like, I mean, you only can do what you have. And so negotiated the best deal I could. Had, you know, only the money that I had. But the day I opened it, I kid you not, the day I opened Wynwood, the Little River project, which was AJ Capital and a couple other, Matthew and some other people, walked into my gym and was like, we're doing a crazy, you know, $1 billion new neighborhood in Little River, and we want you to be the anchor tenant. You know, can you come see it? And so I went and saw it, and I had always wanted to turn that warehouse into what I'm doing to Little River.
Okay.
So Little River is actually a standalone building, and it's like it's basically like an empty old warehouse standalone building, like my old building.
Okay.
But now I'm transforming it into, you know, a beautiful thing.
Awesome.
And it's gonna have like everything. So co-working space, a little after hours lounge. It's got a barber like area. It's got a massage room. It's got physical therapy with Force Physical Therapy. Yeah. They're coming in there. It's got 2 cold plunges, like a 20-person sauna. Wow. It's got all my corporate offices. It'll be my new office, and then it'll have the pit space, and then it'll have like the biggest open gym we've ever done. Yeah. With like all the bells and whistles of that. So it's pretty cool.
Are you still doing the cold plunge? Your custom cold plunge that you were working on?
So both Fort Lauderdale and Little River and Nashville will have my custom cold plunge that I came up with. We're gonna have to modify it. If like it could work in someone's home, but as far as like selling it, it's too like it's there's no way we can sell it yet. And there's so many coming out now.
There's a lot,
But I'm gonna show you pictures of it. It's badass. But it's basically me doing cold plunging and all these different cold plunges, and then me like literally making this for like me, you know, like for like how would I want to do it?
Yeah, fixing all the little things opportunities you see.
Yeah. So I mean, you know, I will say, like everybody says, it's the coldest cold plunge you've ever been in your life. Nice. You know, the water's moving, which feels like a river, you know, so that's kind of cool. And then it's you sit in it and lay back instead of laying all the way back.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of cool. I'll show it to you after.
I like it.
But
it's
really
amazing
cool.
with the circulating water, how it breaks that thermal barrier down.
Oh my God.
You know, because once you're in a cold water, you know, you'll form that thermal barrier that kind of protects you, and you actually feel okay.
Yeah.
But when that water's moving,
When
there's,
that water's
there's
moving,
no reprieve.
there's no escaping the cold. So
That's so cool.
yeah, it's really cool. And then Nashville, we break ground January, and you have a facility in Nashville, right? So I'm excited to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah.
And then because that's one that I'm really excited about. I just love Nashville.
It's
like
a great city.
Every time I go there, there's just an energy there that I love, and I'm obsessed with live music.
Yeah.
And like Nashville, it could be 8 a.m. or 8 p.m, and you hear someone playing the guitar and singing.
I'm a country boy, anyways, coming from Wyoming, so I love country music, and especially live country music, and then good old fashioned rock and roll. They have so much. It's such good energy there. Yeah.
It's so good. And the weather, like at night, it's like nice and cool. And like,
not like here where it doesn't cool down.
You walk out of here and your balls are sweating.
Yeah, it's crazy. No, I love it. I'll get up there and go out for a little jog in the morning or in the evening, and it's really nice. But then it gets hot during the day.
Yeah.
But then, like you said, you get the reprieve at night. It's nice.
Yeah. That's cool. And how long have y'all been open in Nashville?
So it's right at a year now. We actually opened the first studio, and then we ended up relocating it into the Capitol View area, which is great. So it's starting to get a little bit of traction. It was a little bit of a slower starting market for us. I was telling you earlier that it's a very transient kind of place where everyone has just moved there, right? So again, community.
Yep.
It's really hard to form community in a place that people are kind of coming and going from a lot. Also hard from a staffing perspective and getting the good leadership in the studio that we need. But it's fun. There are people that do live there, and it's their permanent home, but it takes a little bit of time to kind of get them to kind of discover who we are and why we're different than some of the other brands and stuff like that. So it's starting to catch on now, but I mentioned to you earlier, I ended up having to live in Nashville for the first half of the summer to, restaffing some stuff.
Right.
And I really enjoyed it. Like, it's just such a cool town. Because like you said, if you have a little time off, you go listen to some live music. It's a beautiful town. A lot of good history, and stuff there too. So, love that place. You're going to love it. I think that, I think you're going to really find it to be one of your gyms you want to visit the most.
Yeah. And that one's going to be 10,000 square feet, and it's going to have all the bells and whistles too.
In Germantown.
In Germantown. So we're looking forward to that one. And then Aventura. We break ground in Aventura probably, if I had to guess, it's been kind of push back. As you know, those things happen. But it's 208 Biscayne Boulevard. So it's right there next to that Chick-fil-A.
It is hard to find real estate in Aventura.
Yeah, this is a brand spanking new project, a Mexico City developer.
Okay.
And it was supposed to happen like 2 years ago, but it's been delayed. But I always believe that timing is everything, and everything happens for a reason. And so it's been kind of interesting, the timing of it. It actually has helped us being pushed out. So we'll probably break ground next year sometime. So
that's awesome. Congrats. That'll be a hell of a market for you guys. We actually have a franchisee looking in that area now, but we haven't found. We had a couple of LOIs out.
It's a tough, it's a tough place to find a space.
But they want like Brickell and like Miami Beach rents.
Bro, it's insane.
It's incredible what they're asking for.
When I was like, before we did this deal, I couldn't find anything less than like 70 a square foot, which is, you can't survive off of that.
Especially as big as your locations are. Yeah, we're only 3,000, 2,700 square feet.
Maybe if you're a smaller studio, but not a full service big gym. You need 2,000 members.
It's impossible.
Yeah. So we actually ended up. That's how I am now. Like, I have this list of boxes that have to be checked. And if one of those boxes is not checked, then I walk away.
Yeah.
And I've walked away from hundreds of deals just because I don't want to be in a position where I am just paying rent. Like, that's such a disaster for the gym business. So
it is. And I was, pretty stupid on a few of gung-ho things, and I just kind of jumped at early on, and we were fortunate enough to overcome them. But I think that's the biggest thing. You got to set your standards and stick to them, because it's really easy to get into a bad deal.
Easy.
And it takes 10 good deals to make up for one bad deal, right? It's really risky. So
I found too, like, how I've done it lately is that you also have to be willing to take as long as possible. So to give you an idea, like, it took me a year of negotiating for Little River. It took me a year and a half for Nashville. It took and I'm talking just negotiating, getting to an LOI, then getting to lease, and then getting to it signed. So, if you're not willing to go and go through that back and forth, and if you're not willing to say no, come back to me when you give me what I want, then you're never going to get a deal done.
It's funny. We have a deal going in Boca right now that we're working on. And we've now walked away twice on it, and literally and truly walking away, not as a negotiating tactic, but just like, no, this isn't the right fit.
Right.
And then they come back, and then we get to the finish line, and then it's kind of like the same shenanigans. We're like, okay.
Do they do this to you? Because this is my biggest pet peeve. You agree on the LOI.
Yeah.
You sign the LOI.
Yeah.
And then they send you the lease.
Yeah.
And the lease is not the LOI.
Yeah. So there's two things on that. I think there's sometimes I think that lawyers screw up more deals than they help.
Yeah.
And I think that happens, pretty frequently. At the end of the day, it is your attorney's job to do their best for you as their client. So I don't know that it's necessarily intentional that they're doing it, but inevitably they will take an LOI and they'll be like, I don't think that's in the best interest of my client. So I'm going to just tweak this and hope they don't notice. Yeah. That happens all the time. And if your attorney's not good and doesn't catch it and really refer back to the LOI, and I've gotten really good at reading, I'm sure you too.
I barely even use real estate people anymore.
Yeah.
Because it's just.
Yeah. And so reading reading a lease, and then now AI is actually kind of fun for this. You can actually take an LOI and then take your lease and ask it to find inconsistencies.
Oh, nice.
There's fun things you can do there. So yeah, it's really all about trying to just stay on top of that. But yeah, it's and then there's sometimes it's just shifty people. I don't understand landlords sometimes. How can you sit with the space empty for years?
I will never understand. I'll never understand. And have you ever heard so my business partner knows a lot about it, and he kind of explained it to me. So Wynwood is a prime example. This building is a prime example.
Okay.
So we're in a residential building with office space and retail space.
Okay.
Okay. It opened, let's say April, March. It opened March 2021,
right?
And we moved in. We opened April 2021,
right?
To this date, they've only signed one other person in the retail and no office at all. But yet the residential has been full. And how it was explained to me is that they don't care. Like they only care about the units, and they will hold off on office and retail until they get what they want for forever. Yeah. And I'm like, but I mean, that just doesn't make any sense. I can't wrap my head around it.
I can't. I know there's some tax things where they can write off against what the expected value would be. There's some crazy loopholes there. And then there's something called a cap rate where they can actually then, if they get the right lease for them, they can go out and borrow against that lease.
Yeah, I've heard
at a premium. So it's
that's how they sell these buildings so fast too.
Yeah.
Like this building was sold.
So they're better off getting like that extra $5 a square foot or $10 a square foot adds to their cap rate, which and again, this is all way over my head. I'm probably speaking even outside of my depths right now. But even at that, I mean, simple money in, money out, like sign a lease because someone paying you rent, like it makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But
I don't get it.
Yeah.
So give me a little bit of a day in the life of Cody right now. Like, what is your...
Which day? Yeah.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I know it probably changes, but like maybe give me your slow day and then maybe give me your chaos day.
Yeah. So I'm a creature of habit. I'm an early morning person. So 4 a.m.-ish wake up. Some days I'll sleep until 5. Some days I'm wide awake at 2:30 or 3. But in general, like a 4 a.m. kind of wake up, get up. I usually get to my desk. So I've been in Nashville primarily recently. We're moving back down here full time in the next few weeks. But up there, it's nice because I have a lot of peace and quiet, and I'm not kind of in the noise where I'm having to go and take a lot of meetings in person. So it gives me a lot of space to work. So an ideal day is I get up at 4. I'll work from like 4 to about 6:30. Power through emails, reports, do all the stuff that I need to do, send out a bunch of stuff like to my team to be like, hey guys, I want you to focus on this today, whatever. Then go work out around 6:30. So I've got a cool garage set up. I got the cold plunge. So I hop in the cold plunge, do my workout, go out in sauna, shower up, have that all done around 8, have a little coffee with my wife and then hang out and chat, and then back to my desk around 8:30. Power through the day, till 5:36. and then wind down my day in the evening. Sometimes try and get out I live out in the country, so it's nice to go out for a little walk and enjoy some nature.
Nice.
And then relax, for the evening. So that's kind of a nice, kind of a just regular steady day. Then there's the other side of it, which is like me being here, stuff like that. So, any day can be, focused on franchise sales. It can be focused on, redoing our FDDs for the next year. That's the franchise disclosure documents and all that stuff. So it can be accounting, it can be legal, it could be a new initiative that we're trying to launch in the brand, different stuff like that. So the work changes a lot.
How much travel? Because you have so many locations.
Yeah, so I don't ever have to travel. My role is I have a team of people that go and do stuff. So, we're getting bigger and we're continuously growing. So when we open a new location, I usually like to try and make the grand openings for sure. I used to travel a lot more in the early days because I was also overseeing the site selection and the lease negotiations. We now have people that do all that, but back in the day, which is crazy. I was even reading architectural plans and like making comments on that. I'm like, I'm not an architect, and so again, making my mistakes there. And we had like one studio that opened up with a whole wall full of tile that was behind the lockers. And like that's like $3,000 worth of tile that they waste, so those mistakes were made. So I've removed myself from that, which has then removed me from having to travel.
Right.
So now it's more for fun and by choice, which is great.
Yeah.
Or if there's if we're opening 2 studios at the same time and I need my team on one, I can go to the other and do fun stuff like that. But so it's nice. It's optional for me. But I like it. I do enjoy doing that as well. So it just kind of depends on the time. Travel's hard because my day-to-day is so busy that I lose a lot when I'm on an airplane and having to, be in the airports and you're trying to take calls. And then I land, I'm like, how the hell did I just get 50 emails in the last 2 hours and stuff like that. So I'm getting much better with my time management. I'm finally learning how to delegate. I'm still not very good at it, but I'm getting better. The sheer amount of stuff that you have to do kind of forces you to do it at some point. But we recently just hired someone new. She came from the Luxottica brand, which is like they own all the sunglass huts and stuff like that. So she personally ran like 500 Pearl Visions.
Oh, wow.
And so she came from that kind of pedigree. So she's really stepped in and taken a lot of my operational responsibilities off, managing the team. So our training and ongoing ops teams are now managed by her. That's helped a lot. But it's funny, like you do that. So then all of a sudden that opens up the door to be able to be more productive. So then it ends up like now we start finding new stuff to do and the workload has shot back up again. So, but that's fun. It's an amazing, it's never a dull moment kind of thing. But
do you see yourself like wanting to sell one day or what's the end goal, would you say?
Yeah. I mean, the goal, is always to grow the brand to a point. There will be a point where I'm not the right person to do this. Right. Yeah. We will hit a point where like, we need to bring in a true like CEO or PE firm that has the ability to scale us. And I don't know what number that is. It could be, a lot of times they say you can get to like 100 studios and you can do that with your current infrastructure. And I have the good fortune of having a lot of advisors and smart people around me. And we'll know when that time is, right? So there's two.
You don't have to tell me that. Do you have
we have a number that's in the back of our mind, and it's just kind of arbitrary. At the end of the day, like this is on a path to being something far beyond what I thought. I was just a push-up counter, right? So I'm like, this is what I'm gonna do for the rest of my life. I'm gonna make $200 an hour counting push-ups, and I made a great living, right as a personal trainer, and a hell of a lot more money than I ever would have thought growing up on a ranch. I remember thinking that, oh man, if you could ever make $100,000 in a year, that would be incredible. And then, when you start,
then you live in Miami and that's like,
and you move to Miami. Yeah. And you realize like, I can't even go out for dinner for that. So it was amazing. And so then, of course there's big numbers out there that we'd like to hit, and stuff like that. And we, had investors come in early on and I want to get a good return for them because they believed in us at a very early stage. And, they've shown a lot of trust and stuck through the pandemic and all the tough times. And so we definitely would like to do that from a financial perspective, but I also want to do it in a way that allows the brand to grow to the scale that I think it can. I would love to see us be like an Orange Theory that has 1,000 or 1,400 locations, because that means, no matter what city I go to, I'm going to be able to see something that I was a part of creating.
That's cool. Yeah.
And just knowing that feeling of like, wow, we have, 20,000 members or 100,000 members, or maybe one day 1 million members, like that's an impact. That's when you know that you really did something in the world that's like legacy worthy, See, we take our brand names and just keep throwing them back and forth, right? Yeah. But I think that that's important to me, you know, because no matter how much money you ever have, it's really about the way it makes you feel, and and how you got it, and what you've done to earn that, I think is important to me. And so, yeah, I would like to do that. I definitely have a number in mind and have you know, stuff like that, and I want to get that return for the investors. So 3 years, 5 years from now, I think is kind of where our loose sights are set. Trying to build towards that. It doesn't mean we're sell the whole company either. It could be bring in, you know, there's, I'm already in talks with a lot of really big PE firms that have noticed this, that's humbling in itself. I'm sitting across the table with some very smart people that have really, really changed the world, and they're already noticing who we are.
That's cool.
I never thought that would, you know, push-up counter, like how the hell did I end up at this table, right? How did I have a voice that people wanted to hear, right? And actually, and then the company that they want to be a part of, and they're seeking us out too, right? That's cool. That's a very humbling thing for me to you know, it's hard to process sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, but.
Well, man, I appreciate this.
Yeah, like I said, it's an honor to even
mic drop.
Yeah, no, but it's an honor to even you know, have you ask me to be here, like, and have something maybe worth people might even want to hear. And so it's always, every day is a little bit.
Of course, man.
Yeah.
Like, you know, there's certain people. You know, I had Tony Thomas in here. I've had Mark Megna, and like, to me, you watch from, like, I'm the type that I don't really watch, like, meaning, like, I don't really follow people. I kind of stay in my own lane with my head down, because I like for things to be authentically mine. And I'm the type of person, if I see something that I like or that I think is good, I can, like, I mean, steal it is a bad term, but I can, like, use it and make it better. Like, that's kind of what I've been good at.
Borrow inspiration.
Yeah, exactly. So I like to, like, make sure that legacy is true to what I'm trying to build. Yeah. And so, but you also pay attention, and you also see people, and you also, in circles, you're having conversations. And, like, you know, like, we ended up on the Marriott Tech panel together because of what we both are doing. Yeah. And those are the moments that I smile and I'm like, look at us still going, you know? So it's cool to see all these guys that, you know, it's 20-year runs, you know, like, it's pretty impressive. So
we've had these, you know, like, parallel journeys that are all, you know, individual, but yet not.
And there's such really a respect there, you know, because I know what those 4 a.m.s are. I know what those fires are to put out. Like, I know those meetings of, you know, your business partners or board members. Like you just, you know, when you're doing similar things, you can just have that mutual respect. Like, hey, I get what he's doing. You know, I know what he's doing. So the grind is real, but it's I wouldn't have it any other way either. I really enjoy it. Really enjoy love this.
It. Yeah,
it's what we do.
Yeah.
So. Well, thank you.
Oh, thank you, brother. I appreciate it.